Sandra. Anybody who's been here before, I always introduce the author by how I found them. How did I find them? And this was really just serendipitous. I was on LinkedIn scrolling, as you do, and there was an advertisement for this conference for career managers and people seeking to get information about job search and managing their careers. And you all know I dig that. That's my topic. I like it. It was a couple days before it was happening. So I quick registered and I couldn't attend the whole thing, but I could attend some. So what I did is I went to a couple of the sessions, and Angie is a prominent player at this conference. And first of all, I loved her energy. I was like, I'm digging her. I like her so much. And then she said, "Hey, I have a book. If you guys want to buy it, there's a link." So I looked and I bought the book. And I have a digital version, so I can't hold it up. I have a digital version of her book. But there it is. And it was good. It was good. So I thought, she doesn't know me from Adam, but I'm going to reach out to her and just say, "Look, your conference was good, what I could attend of it. And two, your book is good. Would you like to be a guest?" And she graciously said yes.
Here I
So
am.
please welcome to meet the author of Scary Good, Discovering Life Beyond the Sunday Scaries, Angie Callen. Welcome. Oh, I think you're staggering a little bit. Hopefully you come back. Nothing's worse than when we have staggering. Let's see if we can give you a refresh, Angie. Oh, she is really stuck. Here we go.
Nothing
There
like
you
your
go.
internet taking a dump the second you're
Yes.
introduced.
It could not have been better timing. It could
Could
not.
not.
I did not panic because I'm like, it's all good.
I'll be
She,
back. Although my husband is in a meeting 2 rooms over, and I heard some expletives out of his out of his room, and I'm like, mm-hmm.
yes, yes.
Now that we're here, Teresa, I'm so excited. And I am so excited that you just blindly reached out to me on LinkedIn because I'm wearing a shirt that says humans. I am a former engineer who loves them. And so this has been fantastic to get to know you. And thank you for coming to my event where not only I'm a prominent player, but I created the whole freaking thing. So it's
I
nice
had a
that you see the
feeling you
ripple
did.
effect of it. So thanks for having me.
What was that program called? And are you doing another one this year?
It is, yes, it's called, so there's two things, and I'm glad you asked. It's called the Job Seeker Summit. It happens annually on January 8th of every year. This year was the third annual, and it is in honor of National Career Coach Day, which I also founded. And it is our
Wow.
way to give back while also recognizing the work that career coaches are doing to impact professionals and humans. What we've also done, in addition to the yearly event, is because it was clearly so needed and such a
Very
success,
much.
we have added a monthly mini. And so if you're watching out there and you're interested, if you go to my LinkedIn profile and go to events, the next one is on May 5th. And each month it's like a couple coaches from that event who are coming together. We do a fun panel and deep dive into like one topic. So last month was all about like networking through your existing grapevine. And this coming month in May, we're going to talk about how to follow up in all facets of follow up. So just
Good
deep
stuff.
diving into somewhere to give everybody really tactical support. So it's a way to kind of keep that momentum in between the annual big event.
Super smart. So we should mark our calendar for January 8th.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you should all day
All
long.
right. All right. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And I think I let you know I am happy to share. If you need another person to speak, I am happy to do that. So you do a lot of things. So you clearly managing career is part of your repertoire. But tell us about you and the work you do. What are all the things? What's putting a roof over your head and giving you joy?
How long do we have, Teresa?
I know you're doing
I
a
am a
lot.
if you've ever seen the TED talk about multi-potentialite, I am one of them. And at my core, I'm really entrepreneurial, which is why I am a former engineer. because those two things don't really live in the same world. And so what I've done is build myself a little ecosystem that allows me to uh, leverage those different interests and different strengths in a lot of ways. Career coaching has been the foundational business that has helped me really get into entrepreneurship, and was pretty much my core or even solo focus for like the first 5 or 6 years. Now that I'm 8.5 in, I'm starting to broaden. So I do kind of more executive advisory, some like team building, team training. I love the ability to help people connect, whether that's an individual connecting with their teams, whether that's an individual connecting in an interview, or whether that's a group of people trying to connect with each other. I feel like work has changed, but humans haven't. And figuring out how we stay ahead with all the changes is really, I would say, from the hill I will die on and the thing that puts the roof over our head.
Oh my gosh. I love work has changed, but humans haven't.
Yeah.
Just had a conversation about that this week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, despite all of this technology and the way the working world has shifted, we are still human beings. And I always say we do not park our soul at the door when we come to work. It comes with
We do
us.
not live in the real life version of the show Severance, people. We just don't. And I actually will even take it a step further that it's the complete opposite of Severance now. You know, old school work was go to work, clock in, clock out, kind of leave your soul at the door, or at least just pretend
Yes.
like you didn't have one, and then go home at 5:01 p.m. and reintegrate, right? It wasn't completely severance, but there was no intention there. And now with the complexity of the working world, the number of career tracks and specialties and flexibility that we have, we actually live in a time when you can find work that or create it to that complements your life instead of competes with it. And to me, that's what the polar opposite of severance is, right? Let's integrate, because work-life balance is a myth, by the way. It is a term that we just need to throw out because it's an illusion you'll
Yes.
never get to. However, if you can find a work and a career track that integrates with your life and is built on the lifestyle that you want to have, it actually can complement it instead of compete with it.
Yes. Yes. And I think we have people who want work, and not so much work-life balance, but they want to be able to integrate their work as a joy and as fulfillment into their life, which makes me laugh because I remember when I went out on my own and my dad's like, where are you going to work, Therese? Where are you going to get a job? And I said, I'm going to start my own company. I'm just going to do my own thing. And he's like, No. And he's like, why would you do that? And I'm like, well, because it doesn't make me happy to work inside a company. I think I'll be happier. And it was so foreign to him. He's like, happiness and work. What?
What?
Yes. And then a year later, when I was doing okay, he's like, look at her doing well on her own. But it was
Were
foreign.
we separated at birth and have the same parents? Because that was essentially the exact same thing that happened when I said, Mom and Dad, I'm not going to be an engineer anymore. And at that point in time, I was actually still looking for another career. And I did another career for 7 years before entrepreneurship. So I have a 7 year itch. I was an engineer for 7 years and got into the nonprofit world for 7 years and was an executive for like 4.5. And then that's when I stepped into entrepreneurship coming out of that. But when I left engineering, I pretty much had a similar conversation. It was like, what are you thinking? What are we going to
Right,
tell
right.
people? And it kind of took proof it took proof for there to be acceptance, even if I don't know that there's understanding.
Right, right. And once they had the proof, you were good.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're doing all right. You're
It
making
just take,
money.
sometimes it takes a hot minute for other people to catch up with our own life decisions.
This
Hey,
is true.
sometimes I was catching up with my own life decisions over the last 20 years, but it all works out in the end.
It does. It does. So your book is called Scary Good. What does that mean and where did it come from?
So, as people who like authors, I'll give you a little of the backstory of how this book even came to be, because it'll tell you where the title came from, or at least in part. I started writing a book probably 5, 6 years ago, and it looked a lot like a memoir, i.e., I sat on a beach and hashed out 20,000 words of a chronology. And I'm like, who the heck is Angie Callen and who the heck wants to read a memoir about her? And so I knew I didn't have a book, I had material.
Okay.
And I kept working it and putting it in different formats, and I'm in different, themes and weaving different threads, and nothing really felt like the right synthesis of it. Sidebar, around the same time, five years ago or so, I started writing a weekly column called Combating the Sunday Scaries: 7 Tips to Improve Your Work Week. And this thing has gotten some legs. And about halfway through it, it started out with just like simple, here's 7 things to do better this week. Write down a list, do a habit, right? Like almost like general things. And about halfway through, somewhere around edition 100 or so, I wrote a weekly column about all these things I learned from going to 8 ski clinics in a season. And all of a sudden, opens went boom, responses went boom. And it was like, oh, if I talk about all this wacky stuff that we do in our mountain life, people really like it. And even though we live a very unique and intentional lifestyle with maximum access to the things we like, people can see themselves in this stuff. There's, for some reason, somebody that lives in a 57th floor in downtown Center City, Philly, can relate to what I've learned, bruising the hell out of myself learning to mountain bike at age 43. And so in writing more about like my antics and what someone could learn from them, it really started to pick up steam. And I realized last summer that we were rounding the corner to the 200th edition of the
Wow.
Sunday Scaries newsletter, and the world went smack me in the face, Angie, you're a moron. There it is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, essentially, scary good, in my opinion, does mean how do I combine work and life into an intentional, integrated design ecosystem built on the lifestyle that I desire to have, not living life in the 2 hour margins after I get home, not setting your soul at the door, right? So that like I can look back and have no regrets. I can say we've had a scary good life, right?
That's
And the way the
awesome.
book came together was taking all of those newsletters I've written, teasing out the common themes, and lo and behold, we shouldn't be shocked at the coincidence that those themes all paralleled the chronology I had hammered out years before. And it just kind of went like this. And in telling my story and my journey to Scary Good Life, I was able to work in a lot of those kind of teachings into a memoir and a guide that really became a collation of everything that I have both experienced and been working for and talking about over the last 10 to 20 years.
This is something, and we had a little conversation before we opened it up to everybody that like 70%, a large percentage of people are suffering on a Sunday night,
Yeah.
worried about whatever it is they're facing the next day, whether
Mm-hmm.
it be the job, somebody at work, finding parking, the commute, whatever it is, that Sunday night. So I love one that you did. All of those episodes talking about
Yeah.
how to get past it. You know, many good authors have said the best way to write a book is to start a blog or to start a series of things,
Yep.
and you can put it all together. So that was not your intention behind it, but it is the outcome. So it worked out
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. And if you've ever thought about writing a book and haven't, for anybody out there, look at what you do have to work with, because you may not
Yes.
have to start from the beginning. And to go back to the struggle of the workforce, the average American experiences the Sunday scaries, which for any of you that have never heard that term, it's essentially the Sunday night anxiety. It is letting Monday ruin your Sunday. It is losing several hours of your weekend because you're already putting yourself in the office on Monday, right? The average American experiences that 36 times a year. Now, when we take 52 and we subtract all the Monday holidays, and the
Hmm.
2 to 4 weeks of vacation that you're taking, it basically means the average American is experiencing this 98% of the time. And to me, that's no way to live, right? It means you're not present to your family, your friends, and the things that you love. And you literally are allowing Monday to ruin your Sunday instead of setting yourself up for success.
There's two things that come to mind, Angie. The first is that's sad, and you should do something to change that. The second thing is, what can we do to make workplaces such that we want to be there? And that is the foundation of my business. It's my little tagline is creating places where people want to work. I
Actually
want
want to work.
people on Sunday night. Now, yes, we would all be rather be, I don't know, on a beach with a frozen drink, but seeing as we have to work, most of us, wouldn't it be nice on a Sunday night to be looking forward to seeing your colleagues, looking forward
Yeah.
to making progress on a project that you're working for, looking forward to serving customers in some way? Angie,
Yeah.
am I crazy for thinking that's even possible?
Oh no, I'll hop on a plane and you and I will stand on a soapbox together in about 6 hours. How's that sound? Because this is in a way the like the flip side of the coin to, if this is individually, how do we do this? There needs to be
Sure.
an, oh, well, there's like seventh book in the next book queue, right? You write
Yeah.
one and you write a lot of others. But in a way, this is the individual level of how do I design and how do I know what I want to design a life and then find work that complements it. But the reality is, there is a parallel conversation that does need to be happening here from a corporate America and an organizational level in order to make that easier for
Yes.
people. And this is this is where work has changed, humans haven't. But the thing is, work hasn't caught up to that fact.
Right.
And so, like, for me, a lot of it starts with values. And I mean that from an individual perspective and an organizational level. And I talk about that in the book, that you can't design a life and understand what complementary work looks like if you kind of don't have that foundation of values. But I've also gone into companies like 2 weeks ago. I literally was in Tennessee doing this with an executive leadership team. And I'm like, let's look at the company values. Are you actually living them? Are they correct? And I don't think people understand how substantial that type of exploration can be when it's actually meant and lived and not slapped on a
Yes.
website as
Oh
marketing
my
fodder,
gosh.
right?
Yes.
And and if it's slapped on a website as marketing fodder, you don't have values. And if you don't have values, you don't have a culture. Or you may, it's probably bad, because good culture is never an accident. And if
Right.
you're not intentionally looking at the culture that you want to have and making it accessible to the multi generations that we now have in the workforce, and the way the younger generations are pushing us to work, you are not going to be relevant and you're not going to attract top talent. Because the challenge we have right now is
Yes.
we're in a push pull, and we're
Yep.
in an active transition where autocratic leadership is not going to be, it's the younger generations aren't going to stand for it. And while companies think, because of the nature of the market right now, they have the power, I don't believe
Hmm.
they do. And so I think that there is a bottom up change that's
Yes.
going to happen, because these younger generations that have very large numbers of workers coming into the workforce
Yes.
aren't going to work the way that we always have.
No. No. They won't. They will not tolerate it. And it's always. I've been around a while. I'm not even going to tell you my age, but I've seen like things are cyclical. Things are cyclical. So right now, job market not delightful. Not
No.
delightful. So companies kind of get a little comfortable because where are you going to go? You can't go anywhere. Where are you going to go? But we all know it's cyclical. And all of a sudden, the job market is good again. And you know
It,
who leaves? Talent. Talent
good
leaves.
talent.
Yes, they are the
Yep.
first to go. And I sit here with my cup of tea and I'm like, there it is.
Get
There
out
you
the
go.
popcorn. It's coming. And you're right, because we're on a 20, this is the 20-year cycle, right? We saw a lot of the same factors and variables during the Great Recession in the early aughts that we're seeing now. Technological disruption. That was the digital transformation. Now we're in the AI transformation, economic, social, political uncertainties, innovation at an all-time high, generational changes, right? And right now, that's fine for employers who, like you said, can sit and have their
Yep.
laundry list of 97 bullets on a job description because they know a unicorn's eventually going to show up to meet them all. But
Yes.
that pendulum's going to swing hard the other way, and they're gonna get caught.
Yep. And each time this happens, I watch
Yeah.
and get a little joy. I have to tell you, I get a little joy from that because
There's something to be said for told you so.
yeah, but what is also joyful is there are companies that, regardless of the job market, do care deeply
Yes.
and are good places to work.
Yes.
And we have lists of them. I often tell my job seekers, start with these lists of best place to work. Is everything on that list delightful? Probably not, because we know
There
it.
is no such thing as a perfect company or a
Yes.
perfect job. So you have to, that pressure
Yes.
has to be off. And some people might agree with what's on that list and some people may not because we
Right.
all have different preferences.
Yes.
But it's a
But it's
starting point.
nice. It's nice to start with that because they've been vetted to a certain degree.
Yep.
Why not? There's companies that I call them under rocks. They're not well-known brands. It's something you wouldn't come across in your day to day, but they're really nice. They're really
Yeah.
nice. And
And they
you
may
could
be
like,
complete, it's like off Broadway shoes, right? This is no
yes,
brand you've ever heard of. And guess what? That is fine. You don't
yes,
need to have a Google on your resume anymore. In fact, it is not the magic bullet that it once was. So if working for a Fang was only a goal because you thought it would set your career forever, or because you think you want to
right.
make that much money, speaking of leaving your soul at the door or selling it for all of that money, right? Like the just because it doesn't have a sexy name or recognizable brand doesn't mean it's not a stable, solvent, great place to work.
And place to learn and grow and build connections.
Yep.
So Sunday scaries. I made a note for myself. They're not something to fix, but something to listen to, right?
Yeah.
What are the Sunday scaries actually telling us?
You alluded to this earlier, and I almost grabbed onto it, and I'm glad I waited because now we have more space for it. If you are one of the people who is part of that majority of experiencing Sunday scaries 36 times a year, maybe even half of that, right? If half of your Sundays are given to Monday, that isn't just about work. That isn't just about I hate my job. There is typically a bigger or more foundational misalignment happening that looks like sacrificing a lifestyle or a place you want to live because of a job that you feel like you have to keep. Golden handcuffs create that scenario quite
Hmm.
often. Feeling stuck and assuming that you have no other options are the things that kind of keep us in this pattern of feeling Sunday scaries because it's just a norm, quote unquote, and it's just the way it is, and it's the only way that it's just how we live, and I don't accept that. I accept that is mediocrity, right? I believe that humans still matter, and mediocrity is expensive, and I don't mean expensive in the money sense because 20 years from now you're going to look back and go, man,
Right,
I could have done something way more meaningful with my
right.
life or way more satisfying or something that gave me more time with my family. The, the six regrets of the dying do not include I wish I made more money. And so this is where I get fired up of like the
Yes.
Sunday scaries to me, if you're having them substantially, are a sign pointing to a whole bunch of excuses that are keeping you in a mediocrity trap instead of looking at what you can control and how ownership can actually change your outcomes and or your satisfaction.
And it's about choices.
Everything
And
is a choice, including not making any, people.
yes,
Everything is
yes.
a choice, including not making a choice. That is a choice.
And some of these choices are going to be uncomfortable. And I think one of the things that strangles people is this need for comfort. This, I'm not really digging this job, but at least I know, and I have this, and I like the window that I have at where. No, like really think to yourself,
Yeah.
and this goes back to values. What are your values? What matters most to you? Does your job align with what matters most to you? How many of the hours you spend at work are aligning with your top five values?
Yeah. You do work more than you do anything else,
I know.
including sleep. Most of us work more than we sleep because most of us work
Yes.
more than 8 hours a day and sleep less than 8 hours a day.
Yes.
You do this more than anything else. Why do you want to be mediocre until 62 and a half and then go have your adventure when your knees don't work anymore?
Yeah. It's you got to do it. You got to make the
Yeah.
choice.
And
So,
and to me it goes back to, I want to add this because this is, to me, this is critical. Hard is also a choice, and you have to choose your hard. There's
yeah.
a saying out there that was part of I think it was a CrossFit marketing campaign recently, and I'm one of those wacky people that likes to throw barbells around. And it was easy, get ready, easy choices, hard life, hard choices, easy life. And what that
Interesting.
means is if you choose the hamburger, now you're going to be unhealthy and you're going to have to go through the hard process of weight. If you choose a job that isn't fulfilling, you made the choice to accept the hardness of Sunday scaries versus putting yourself out of the comfort zone and choosing hard now for satisfaction later. That to me is everything. But you're 100% right, Teresa. We live in comfort, we live in perfection, we live in keeping up appearances instead of being willing to take a little bit of a road less traveled because it's the one that you know is right for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get it. It's tough. Well, you and I have made some tough choices, and I'm curious because I've not had this conversation with you, but something happened, Angie. So you were an engineer at Carnegie Mellon,
I went to Carnegie Mellon, studied engineering. Yeah.
and you are entrepreneur and coach and nonprofit leader. What was your Sunday Scaries moment that cracked things open, or was there one?
There's actually been a few.
Okay.
But there was one that was like the Monday through Sunday scaries, to be honest with you. And that's just I would say anecdotally, a lot of us in like the coach, the speaker, high performance space, who set out to help other people like live more purposeful lives have had some sort of rock bottom that gave us the perspective that we need to have for this. And that was my Monday through Sunday scaries. Because in my journey, when you go to Carnegie Mellon and study engineering, you don't change your major when you're a junior, which is what I wanted to do, but there was no options. So I
Wow.
just kept doing it. But it's funny that in hindsight and also writing this book really did help identify some of these things, right? So like this book was almost just as much for me as everyone else.
Catharsis.
A big catalyst to everything was as an engineer, I had the opportunity to transfer from Boston to Colorado. I had been bitten by the ski bug living in New England, came out here on vacation, was like, why the hell am I driving I-95 to ski in Maine when I could live here? And I got to transfer here in the middle of the Great Recession. That put a
Wow.
lot of wheels in motion because talk about even less satisfying work. So I made the very intelligent, strategic decision to leave engineering in 2010 with absolutely no plan, first seed of career coaching planted. And that was where just some random exploration happened. And I landed in the nonprofit sector. And while I was the executive director of an organization, my husband and I had the opportunity to purchase a business. And it was very, very romantic because it was the business that hosted the event with where we met. And it was an outdoor sports company. So idyllic. This is one of those, if it's too good to be true, it probably should. It probably is. And so we ended up buying a business that TLDR was a steaming pile of shit.
Oh my
And
gosh.
within about 2.5 years, it bankrupted us.
Oh
And
no.
we had put pretty much everything into this. And so all of this stuff converged to a point where, we went bankrupt. Neither of us had real work. Our landlords kicked us out. We had where we had lived for 10 years. We had two big dogs, nowhere to go. So we bought a gutted school bus and turned it into a house because that was the only option that we had to possibly still live in the mountains and recover. And so that whole period of time was like the shame, both internally and externally, because this was a community of people who now we are like the spawns of Satan too. Even 10 years later, 15 years later, we still are.
Oh,
And so like we
wow.
were kind of almost like pariahs in communities that literally were the way that my husband and I met. And so there was so much shame placed upon us and created internally that it really became hard to feel like I had worth. And so this is like the biggest substantial kind of Sunday scaries you can have because I didn't even know where to go, how to restart a career. And so of course I started a coaching business in the middle of this disaster. And if you want to talk about imposter syndrome throughout all of this, I'm literally sitting and coaching people who have six-figure salaries while I am going, we have $800. Should we buy the composting toilet? Right. So it was just this really
Wow.
like ironic situation and working through it and working through that rock bottom gave me such a different perspective on getting out of your comfort zone and making
Yes.
choices and going through hard things because future hard things are less hard when you do.
Yeah. That is quite a story, Angie. I had
Chapters
no
chapters 3 through
idea.
6.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I mean,
Well,
there's so much more to it. There is like, there is sleeping in the back of my Subaru in the middle of Denver so that I could go down there and see clients, but didn't want to spend $150 on a hotel room. Like it's just, it was one of those things where I was willing to do whatever I could do in order to, I think, prove to myself first that I still had worth and could recover from circumstances that were partially out of our control and partially within our control, right? They were due to choices that, if I'm honest, I knew we shouldn't have made at the time, but I didn't listen to my intuition. Somebody in chat said something about intuition
yes.
earlier. You
John
should
mentioned
listen to that
intuition.
knowing. That knowing is way stronger than you think. And as a former
Yes.
engineer who loves people, sitting here saying that your gut makes better decisions than your head should mean something to you. But
Yes.
that really set a series of events in motion that are really substantial to my perspective, my relationship with my husband that somehow survived this, and the fact that my business ended up buying us a house on the back end of all of it. And so life can work out for you if you let it.
Yes. And I think there's something to be said for having a knowing and believing. And I know that sounds very woo-woo, but there is an energy to that.
Yes.
And if you see what it is that you want and just take action every day toward that, even though it may be far off and other people are telling you you're crazy for doing it. But there is magic. I see it over and over again. And I hope my job seekers that are watching, because I know people they've lost jobs or they've left jobs because they just couldn't do it anymore. And the
Mm-hmm.
market is really tough. Um, be clear about what good looks like for you and take
Yes.
those steps towards that because
Yeah.
your story is inspiring. I mean, you completely shifted careers, and who better to be a career coach now than someone who has lived through
Yeah.
that shift?
And I tell, I work with coaches who want to become with coaches who want to become coaches. And a lot of times I'll say, what do you want to do? I want to help people. Okay, well, who do you want to help and how do you want to help them? And they'll say, well, here's who I want to help and how I want to help them, but I don't have any credibility to it. And then they tell me their story and I'm like, there's your credibility, right?
Yes.
And again, to be an analytical person with woo-woo tendencies, I totally agree. Energy is a thing. And I also believe that all of us are here with a purpose. And that
Yes.
purpose is likely to impact at least one other person in some way. And that's where meaning comes from. I mean, I'm sure you've talked to a lot of the same people I have that they get here, they get to mid career and they're like, do I want to keep doing this same meaningless thing for the
Yes.
next 20 years that I've done for the last 20? And that's usually a driver, but not understanding what purposeful, meaningful work is makes it very hard to find
Yeah.
purposeful, meaningful work. And I want to add one more thing around the market. For any of you out there who are struggling in this current time and place, there's an ironic thing that I have continued to observe. And that is if you know what purposeful, meaningful work and values aligned environments look like for you, you will actually land there. It will take a long time. It's going to take 6 months. However, the being intentional now is actually more helpful than in a market that's an employee market. And it is because that list of unicorn qualities actually draws the right matches. And so it might seem totally, totally bizarre and ironic, but what I am seeing now is people are getting better fitting jobs than they did before. Yes, it's taking longer, but it is because it's taking longer. And if you set the intention, you'll actually get a
Interesting.
really, really good outcome.
Yeah, and I think having that one clarity around what does good look like and just believing and knowing
Yeah.
that something good will come your way. By the way, as we're sitting here talking about values, I have a great values assessment. If anybody's looking to figure out what your values are, and I'm
Yay.
not the only one, I'm sure that if you Googled it,
Oh,
you'll
I have
find
one
them.
too. This is how
Yeah,
important this stuff is.
it is. Like
It's literally
wait,
linked in this book. That's how
you
important it is.
you need to identify, and I think it's an exercise that we do periodically because as we age our values change, so we really need to assess what's in, like when you're 20 maybe health isn't on your list, but when you're 60 health is in your top 5, who knows, but you want to revisit this and know what your values are, and then say to yourself, this is how many hours there are in a week. How many hours of my week am I aligning with my values? And if not many of them are, you got to change how you're spending your time.
Totally.
You just have
You know
to.
what, Teresa, you just made me think of something that's like just seemingly random, but not. Red light, yellow light, green light exercises are great for this. If you're green, you're good. If you're red, you're terrible. If you're yellow, keep paying attention. But it's so funny how we also like is as humans come full circle. So like we were talking about with like if you want to help people or you have a lived experience that can inspire or help people, who are you to keep that from the world? And it's
Right.
just so funny how themes show
God.
up because years ago, like I would say within when I was like a baby coach, I was probably 6 months into this whole thing. I actually did a whole exercise about this with people. And it was like, are you miserable? Green light, yellow light, red light. And isn't it so funny that while that didn't stick then, it's come all the way full circle to be so relevant and
Yes.
this kind of thread around the fact that we have it does while it doesn't seem like it, we have more agency and more control over our lives and careers than we ever have before. We just
Yes.
don't take it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And you have to be willing to take the steps forward, not knowing what the full path looks like, but just knowing you're going to get somewhere good.
Exactly.
Good,
Exactly.
good stuff.
And if you're lucky, it could be scary good.
It
Like how I
could
did
be
that.
scary good.
See what I did there?
I see what you did. I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh, where to go from here? Was there anything that you said in the book that you'd been holding back? You were pretty, and I read the book a couple months ago, so it's in
Yeah.
fairness, I skimmed it yesterday, but was there anything that you'd been holding back?
I'm a pretty direct-handed person. And so it wasn't like I'm going to tell this story for like vulnerability's sake. Everything in there was, I would say, it was intentional in a way to either prove a point, buy trust, inspire. And so I don't necessarily know there was anything I was holding back, although I will answer that question by saying I was surprised at things I decided to include. And which was interesting to like go. I took a walk down a 45-year memory lane in some ways, and so I remember it specifically for any of you who have already read it or about to read it, the story about Jim and I camping and having a really hard conversation at a year and a half into a relationship that I thought I knew where we were going. That was something I had not thought about in a while and didn't intend to include, but it felt relevant because otherwise that relationship felt like it was without any tension, which is totally not true. And so that was something that I was like, okay, I'm surprised I feel compelled to share this. But what was interesting for me is, as I say, writing the book was just as much for me and other people. Somewhere around the end, a lot of things came together. And in a way, chapter 11, which is the chapter about confidence comes from action, not the other way around. That
Hmm.
chapter, in a way, was the full synthesis that I realized as I was writing that chapter that that's actually what I had been doing. And so that was like a real time realization for me as an author that felt like the culmination of everything to give to the reader at the same time. And that was a really cool experience for me to kind of put my own dots together in real time
Yes.
process.
Yes. This is why we write.
Yeah.
Yeah, these books are not just for everybody else. But
Yeah.
although I felt an obligation to write my book, and I'm sure you did too. Once we figure something out, it's like we gotta share this.
Yeah, it has to come out. And I've, in all honesty, to go back to like, how did the book come to be? I felt that compulsion for the 5 or 6 years that I had been writing it. What's interesting though is the rock bottom story, that the shame and the how do I even have the perspective that I do now? I needed to have a different relationship with that part of the story before I could appropriately give it to an audience and have it relate. Because
Right.
until I kind of came to some level of closure with that, all of that experiences and everything that came out of it and the fallout, it wouldn't have been the right way to present it, right? Then it would have been only for me and nobody else. And so I think that's also important is like, what's your, if you're, especially if you're writing nonfiction in your own story, like, what is your relationship with the story? And are you at appropriate point in it to give it to somebody else with the right intention?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think a lot of us have some pretty heavy stories, heavy stuff that maybe we're not even ready to do that yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's relative as well. And so if you're sitting there going comparison, man, I don't have a bankrupt living in a bus story. You have something that has been as substantial to your
Yes.
development and growth and perspective on the world, and leaning in and exploring that will make you a more complete human.
Yeah. I call them we need Kleenex and alcohol moments for those stories, right?
Give me some
Yeah.
whiskey.
Yeah. We do. I'm not a drinker, but we need Kleenex and alcohol for
Yeah.
those. So as a coach, we often have reflection prompts to get people to dig deeper and to think. What is a reflection prompt that you have that hits people, even if it's uncomfortable?
Hmm. I'm going to actually have two. One is what's important to you right now. And that could go all the way into values, or that could be something that's more priority based. But the second one, and it typically needs to come on the heels of that conversation, is what's missing.
Mm,
And it is really interesting to see how that gets people thinking about what's wrong, but in a very constructive, productive, forward thinking way instead of like a complaining vent kind of way. And so if something feels off, explore what isn't there instead of trying to pro and con what is.
yeah, yeah, because this will get the wheels turning.
Yeah.
And
And
then,
I'm going to add something else to that. Here's what did I say? I'm a analytical person with woo woo tendencies.
yes,
Uh, Journaling is a very, very powerful thing here. Now, I will
it
tell
is.
you, as an analytical former engineer, I am not a great blank pager, right? You know how it's like write 10 pages. I don't do that very well. I like to have some sort of prompts or, let's say, goal of the journaling, and then it will
Hmm.
kind of flow. But whatever the reflective question is, and whatever the area of life and or work you want to reflect upon and diagnose, whether it's journaling, whether it's, I'm a big fan of like get outside and tune out. We can't do any of this if we don't disconnect and aren't willing to spend time with ourselves. And I think that's something that society wise we're having a hard time with. Right? We're so constantly on that we can't even turn off to be with ourselves, and we don't like to be with ourselves if we do. However, none of this discovery or clarity is going to come if you're not willing to do that hard thing.
Yeah, Andy, I think you're absolutely right. I think we are rewarded and kind of revered for busyness. Look at how
Oh, it's a badge of
busy.
honor.
Oh, look how busy. Oh, she's all over social media. She's here, she's there, she's there.
Yep.
But you know what? We as humans and leaders, tell me this. I've asked leaders, what has led to your success? What advice do you have for other leaders? And something that comes up, which is magical, is I take time to reflect. I have a guy in the UK that I was talking to. He says, I take time to muse, which is so UK. Time to
It's so
muse.
UK.
It is. But I find that the best leaders, truly the best leaders, see exactly what you're saying, Angie,
Yep.
and they carve out the time because that time is, well, when you get, if we will get woo, we get in touch with who you are. And I point to my heart. Who am I and what am I doing here? But it's also that time to come up with solutions to problems
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
ideas for neat things to do. Like this is why I'm not a churchgoer, but I think we need something like going to church, like
Yeah.
something that you do on a regular basis. Because when we go to church, and I do occasionally go to church, it is reflection time for me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I can't watch my phone because that would be rude. So I have to sit there and based on what we're talking about in the service, I have to reflect. And if
Yeah.
we can just carve out that time once a week for
Yep.
ourselves to reflect, it's
Yeah.
absolutely huge.
And you
Yeah.
bring up the leadership conversation as part of that. It's even more important if you're in it's one thing to say, like, I don't like where I'm at life wise, I got to lean into myself, right? It's another to say, I don't know if I like where I'm at leadership wise, because that impacts the people below you. And the most exhausting type of leadership that you can do is one that is not authentic to you. However, corporate America has forced us into, shape shifty, kind of like, be the type of leader we
Yes.
want you to be instead of being a genuine, authentic leader. And to me, this is how like work has changed, but humans haven't. And knowing the type of human leader you want to be is the best way to be, but it is hard to do that when your 972 priorities are hitting you in the face 10 hours a
Mhm.
day, right? And so it is even more important to make sure you fill your own cup first, right? My friend Justin Shanks, we've all heard you can't fill from an empty cup. My friend Justin Shank adds to that, and he goes, fill your own cup and then let it overflow and give that to the other people, right? And it's a really good way to think about the fact that you can't lead from a place of scarcity. There's another woo-woo topic we could get into: scarcity
Oh
versus
my
abundance and
God. Love
positivity
it.
mindset, because that's
I have a
scientifically
keynote coming
proven.
up in August.
Yeah.
Abundance and scarcity.
Yep. I love what Bruce just said. And I will say, I feel that the
Yes.
spirituality, like the faith thing, if you explore and you dig into successful people, they all have it. They all have a connection to some sort of higher level belief. And to me, that's where quietness and that's where trust can oftentimes come from. And also, it's a sad existence not to believe that there's something bigger going on, right? And that energy comes from somewhere, and that we have the ability to do really, really great things because, uh, of all of the energy that we have to use. So I don't know. It's just
It,
it's a neat thing.
we are sisters from another mister. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, Angie. Lots of stuff. I think it's what pushes us to do the work that we do. And the
Yes.
passion we have for people living their best life is
Yes.
because we recognize this life is important and it should be purposeful and you should get joy from it. And every now and then we're going to skin our knees, but only because that skinning of our knees is going to help us learn a
Yes.
lesson or something that we can help someone else with or to ground us. Yeah,
And
it's
you deserve
all
it.
about
This
that.
is this is I think a
Yes.
great place to bring it all together is you deserve it. I don't care what mistakes you've made in the past. I don't care where you have quote unquote failed. By the way, failure is a learning experience, right? The like that kind of stuff, I think a lot of times it's easy for us to put that this we keep ourselves small. But ultimately you deserve this. And for me, I don't know about you, Teresa. For me, I came dangerously close to accepting the mediocre traditional life that would have come had I
Yes.
followed the belief system applied to me. If I had followed I was raised by baby boomers who had the same job for 30 years and set that expectation on me
Yes.
as somebody graduating school in the late 90s, early 2000s, when that was still the norm, right? I could have done that. I would still be living on the East Coast in the rat race, being an engineer, probably a VP by now because I do like
Sure.
people, probably making as much, if not more, money, and definitely having a larger 401k than I did. But guess what? I would go mountain biking 7 days a year. I would ski 7 days a year on my vacation. And now I get to ride out my front door and ride world class stuff, right? I prioritized things that I didn't want to put off
Yes.
until late. And that has trade offs. That has trade offs. However, I allowed myself to lean in and do that. And it's why I get so fired up about telling other people you can do the same. I remember when I moved from Boston out here, this was the seed. And I remember it so vividly. People would say to me, my ski friends especially, oh, you're living my dream. You're doing exactly what I want to do. And I just remember thinking, well, who the heck am I? I'm nobody special. You could do this too. And
Yes.
that, in a nutshell, is exactly the problem that I think you and I are out here shouting from the rooftops, trying to
Yes.
change.
Yes. Because you can find any of a number of reasons not to do it, but there are
You can
better
find a
reasons
million
to
reasons
do
not
it.
to do it. All you
Yes.
need is one really, really good one, too. Because
Yes.
what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to gather information. You can always go back. However, you can't. Best time to plant a shade tree 20 years ago. Next best time today. There you go.
Yes.
What do you need to go
Yes.
do?
Yes. Preach. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. So what do you want readers to feel when they finish the book?
Hopeful And well, I'm going to say three things: hopeful and inspired. But for me, inspiration is not a deliverable. I want them to feel compelled to take some sort of action.
Awesome.
And this is not a frameworky kind of book. This is not sea of sameness, self-help. Here's your 12-step framework on how to go take action. This is here a bunch of shit. Here's a bunch of shit I did, what you can learn from it, and maybe some ways which you can lean into that. Pick one, do it. Because you aren't going to learn by sitting in analysis paralysis. You're not going to experience, you're not going to understand where things really lie. And so I want people to feel hopeful that they can change, inspired to then do something about it, even if it's a small, small step. Don't do nothing. That's what I want people to think when they
Oh my
stop
gosh,
reading.
that should be your bumper sticker. Don't do nothing. Oh my gosh. Angie, what's coming up for you and how can we support you?
Oh, well, as you said at the beginning, I've always got my hat in a few different things. I am really excited about some retreat work I'm doing. So I've got a coach retreat coming up next month. I'm really excited about. There will be future books, so don't worry about that. But really, what's coming up for me is I want to be out there and doing this with as many people as I possibly can. So whether it's a stage or a room where connection needs to happen and inspiration plus action needs to, to come in, that's what I, where I want to be, and would love to both support you and have the support in kind of doing more of that.
Cool. Well, I am so grateful that the universe was at work. And as I was scrolling through LinkedIn, I happened to see your conference posted, and I happened to click on the link and happened to attend part of, like, all of this was meant to be. You are a beautiful soul, and I am just so grateful for having met you. And thank you for sharing your story and for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me a place to share and for being an equally human.
All right, group hug. We're going to stop our recording and we're going to go to after party. It is time for the after party.